Interesting skirmish still unfolding between the NFL and the NFL Players Association as it relates to the issue of participation in voluntary offseason workouts. And the ultra superficial view on this that I've seen so many people who don't follow this closely articulate is, well, why does any of it matter? It's voluntary. Well, it matters because everybody always shows up, because that's just the way it is. I remember a time 20 years ago where some teams would have 50% participation. They all have 100% or pretty damn close to it now. Right. This is part of the effort to get yourself ready for the season. If you take it seriously, you're there. Guys aren't sitting at home eating pork rinds and watching bowling on TV. They're working out. And it makes sense for a variety of different reasons to work out at the team facility. This year, ostensibly because of lingering concerns regarding the pandemic, the NFLPA has recommended to its teams that players not show up. And so far, 3 teams out of 32 have issued statements that they're not going to be there. Seahawks, Broncos, and the one that surprised me the most, for reasons we'll discuss, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Chris, we've touched on this issue from time to time.
Right.
I'm going to give you my blanket take.
Yeah.
And then I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, cool.
I don't think this has anything to do with the pandemic. I just don't. And I support the NFLPA as much as anyone, and I think that there's an unequal bargaining power, and I understand why they have a hard time getting the best possible deal, because they won't miss game checks, and the owners will gladly shut it down, and that inequality makes it harder and harder for the union to get the best deal, and they're always operating with one arm behind their back, and they actually do pretty damn well considering that limitation. Yeah. But in this case, in this instance, I think this is about protecting the jobs of the veterans who run the union. They don't want the young, cheap guys to show up this year of all years with a $25 million reduction where the cap would have been and prove themselves and potentially take their jobs. I think that's what this is about.
Ooh, well, I mean, I don't think that's a crazy thought. I don't. I think that's probably part of the equation, definitely. I mean, all right, here's the first part that I think we got to hit on here with this. You know, from the player's perspective, because I think there is fault here with both sides, and you know, you kind of touched on it a little bit. But the first thing, I'd ask you, Mike, just with this conversation, what's the NFL, the one thing you hear, and you see a few quotes from a few different players, what's the NFL's plan? You know, what were they going to do to keep these guys safe continually through OTAs and everything like that? Were they going to continue to test these guys on a daily basis and do all of that stuff? I think that's the first thing. I don't know if I ever heard anything like that, to where we got guys that opted out last year because of COVID. So wait, let me come back even now. Oh, wait, COVID's still really relevant in our society, and the numbers are probably higher now than they were this time of the year last year.
And they are.
Right.
I agree.
Okay,
I
so
agree.
Hey, wait, I tried to avoid it last year, but let me come back into the lion's den and just say the hell with it this year and go for it. There has to be a better plan, I think, set forth, at least from my perspective here, to the NFL to the players too here.
Well, the reason that I have an issue with that, my issue is that if this really is about COVID,
right,
and guys are really concerned about it, and you talked last year on multiple occasions about the fact that players, for the most part, don't care, and only 70 out of 2,000 opted out. But if you got a concern about COVID right now, there's a thing you can do to address your concern.
Yeah, get vaccinated.
Far more immediate.
Right.
Far more immediate than worrying about the quality of the protections at the team facility. Get yourself vaccinated. And I think that's part of this. Now, look, one of the things that the NFL showed that it was able to do during the season last year was put safeguards in place. Even if guys get the virus away from work, they were able, except for Tennessee early in the season, Baltimore middle of the season, Browns end of the season, where they all had outbreaks for one reason or another, they were able to keep it under control. And I continue to believe that NFL facilities are going to be safer than going to the local Planet Fitness. Nothing against the local Planet Fitness, but at least there are specific stringent safeguards that we know that the NFL can put in place. So, I mean, the bottom line is the Players Association wants all players to choose not to show up for the voluntary portion of the offseason program, and they've been pushing and building in that direction for weeks now. Yesterday came the memo to the players recommending they don't show up, and then the drip, drip, drip of the 3 teams issuing the statement that they're not going to be there. I'll believe it when I see it, frankly, but Broncos, then Seahawks, then Buccaneers. That's where we are. Whether there are 29 other teams that will be issuing similar statements, that remains to be seen, Chris. I don't know whether this is to command multiple news cycles or they're just actively trying to recruit more teams to sign on, and they hope that as more teams say they will, they can use that to convince more teams to follow suit. I think ultimately there will be multiple teams that don't issue that statement, and I think that there will be multiple players on the teams that did issue the statement who will still show up.
Yeah, I mean, agreed. I mean, there's a lot of problems here as far as what this does for teams, players, everything like that. Where again, there's a lot of areas I disagree with the NFLPA on this one. I mean, a lot. Again, I hear, hey, the play last year was as good as ever. No, it wasn't. It was not. Ask defensive coaches around the NFL. They'll tell you they were behind the 8 ball all year long. They felt like they never really got to, implement really the intricate defenses that they wanted to because they were always playing catch up and getting into basics still when it was September and October and issues like that. Let alone, Mike, I mean, come on. We literally laughed at times about how many people were going down and injured early on. I hate to keep bringing that point out, but that was a real point. Late August, early September, guys were dropping like flies. That wasn't good for the league. That's not good for the players. And then, this aspect of this is where I can't really get my head around it. And this is where maybe you're right about this veteran player thing. But, yeah, they totally, completely have the advantage in the situation like this over really any player that's 4 years or younger. And yeah, they've been the NFL player who's played for 4-5 years or more, they're nuanced. They got a lot of their techniques down. They've run every play in football. They understand all the different defenses or offenses they got to play. They don't need it as much. But the nuances a young guy learns being in the room with a coach and having him speak directly to you, and being on the field with him and having him show you little techniques, and then also being out there with other teammates to add the competitive desire and juices to make you, even be more alert and pay attention. There's nothing that can substitute for that. You can have all the damn Zoom classes you want and all of that, blah, 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 blah. No coach in the NFL is going to tell you that's as effective as players being there in person, let alone what it does, I think, physically to these players, too, as far as not preparing them to the season. So I got a lot of issues with this, and I don't really understand the hard line from the NFLPA here, and, it just seems like there's no discussion about maybe trying to make this work.
I tried to find out what it is that the NFLPA is looking for, and basically the message was it depends which member of veteran leadership you ask. Some truly are concerned about the pandemic.
Okay.
Some are salty about the fact that the NFL has unequal bargaining power, and they're still upset about the CBA that was done last year, and they want to push back on this idea that the owners get everything that they want. And some, like Union President J.C. Treader, doesn't want an offseason program in any year. So this year, it's the residual impact of the pandemic. Next year, it's something else. And I think that what they're hoping to do is if you string together enough years without a voluntary offseason program, you eventually just accept that that's the way it is, that that's what football is now. And I don't know that we're going to get to that point because it's baked into the CBA. It's been part of the NFL for decades now, and guys are going to work out anyway. That's an important point.
Yeah.
Unless your intent is to do nothing from January to July, you need a place to work out. And there's no better place to work out than the facility that you go to, and if you drop a weight on your foot and you're out for the year, or if you tear an Achilles tendon like Michael Crabtree did, just kind of, doing walkthrough plays. Remember that several years ago? You always have to brace yourself for these on-field OTAs because somebody's going to get some serious injury that knocks them out for the year. If it happens, you get your full salary. You're protected. You do it on your own somewhere. The team can say, non-football injury, see you later. So it makes sense to do it. I can understand why the players don't want to do it, the veteran players especially, because it does give younger, cheaper players a chance to take their jobs. And just because we've gone through that crush, folks, of teams getting under the salary cap, they're still always looking, especially in a year like this, for more cap space that they can create. So if you have the full offseason program and that young guy who signs after the draft for a minimum salary, if that guy shows that he can be trusted come week 1, and you've got a guy making $6 or $7 million who's the starter at the right guard position, but they really believe in this guy who came in for the offseason program, who showed what he can do, who showed how he develops in the preseason, who's ready to go, and we can save $6.5 million.
That's right.
Are you kidding me? They don't care about the human. They care about the football player, and they'll pull one out and they'll put another one in, especially if they think they can save over $6 million in cash and cap space. That's the way the business works. So if you shut off the opportunity for the young guy to prove himself, the veteran is protected.
It's a totally valid point, because you're right. When in that situation that you're explaining right there, okay, we have no OTAs, no mini camp, all that. All right, great. We show up for training camp, and yeah, there might be that young player that you're talking about that's got potential and all that, fighting it out with a veteran player for a certain position. And yeah, there might not be enough time in training camp to prove that he can be trusted or be that guy. OTAs and those mini camps, they do have value into that. They jumpstart kind of the thought for training camp. Oh, wait, hey, we had 15 practices. We saw this guy at safety already. Yeah, he's a rookie, but, man, we think we can start. First day of training camp, we're going to throw them out there to be a starter. Instead of okay, the opposite of that is, hey, we didn't practice at all. I don't know what this guy's about. Hey, let's just throw our veteran in. We don't love him, but we trust him. He knows what he's going to do. And, here we are 2-3 weeks into training camp, and that young player is still trying to figure out his way and doing that, and never gets that opportunity to really impress or prove to the coach he is that guy. So there is definite reality to what you're talking about. And that just totally favors the veteran players. It does. And that's where, it's wrong. Mike, here's something the first thing I want to say is there any part of you that thinks maybe the NFL is cool with this not happening this year? The roster bonuses and all that, even though if you're on Zoom and anything like that, can you still obtain them that way? I guess that's the first thing I wanted to ask.
Last year when there was no voluntary on-field off-season program, everyone who was due to make the workout bonus based upon 90% typical participation in the program got it. This year, if they have it, you got to show up.
You got to show up.
Get it.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
The union isn't pushing aggressively the guys with the workout bonuses to not show up. For example, I was told last night teams like the Bills and the Packers, they're not getting the big squeeze because they have so many guys with workout bonuses. Now, look. It creates competitive realities for the teams that do show up. And if you're the Packers and you're showing up, the other 3 teams in your division may be more likely to show up too. It has a domino effect. But yeah, guys have money that is tied to showing up. Aaron Rodgers has $500,000.
Right.
Now he's making $33.5 million, but that $500,000 is for showing up for the offseason workout program, and it's still $500,000. I don't care how much money you have.
Exactly.
$500,000 is still $500,000.
Right.
You think he's going to stand down and let Jordan Love get first-team reps throughout the offseason and give up the $500,000 and also go along with a union that he's still pissed off at?
Right.
Sorry, London. From last year when they did the CBA and he was the Packers player rep, and he eventually said, I'm out. I'm done. I don't like what you guys are doing. You think he's going along with them now? Hell no.
No, absolutely not. And most importantly, the $500,000, like you said, that's real. I don't care how much money you have. And then, the Jordan Love aspect is real too. Like for anybody that's in that particular situation, added to it, what? I don't know. What if I'm a quarterback in today's NFL? I'm sorry, NFLPA. I'm going in to go visit with Coach Gruden, and I'll be there tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Because guess what? I want to be the best player I can possibly be, and that to help that happen is to be with my coach so he can coach me in person. There's something to that. He can put me through drill work and stay on me and really see me in person with his eyes and tweak me and all of those type of things. That's getting lost. And that's where, I wonder how this is going to work. I do. Listen, we hear Seattle, like Russell Wilson. You're not going to show up to the facility. Well, maybe that's a bad example of a guy this year. But you know what I'm saying. That type of guy. where Drew Lock, like the Broncos, like what? You're not going to show up and get coached by some of these guys in a huge year of your career and then try to get in like, hey, wide receivers, why don't you come too? That's where I just don't even know how the players, some of them can get behind that if you want to be great.
A couple years ago, in the aftermath of the Colin Kaepernick situation and the national anthem kneeling, there was a realization that the players have a lot more power than they are willing to use. And one of the points I made was, if you want to show your collective power, you do get together and you say, off-season program, we're not going to be there. The problem is pulling it off. And the way to pull it off is to get all the quarterbacks to sign on, because good luck having football practice if you have no quarterbacks there. But you're not going to pull that off. The veteran wants to be there. The young guy who's trying to develop wants to be there. And we haven't talked about this angle yet. This applies to the Seahawks, the Broncos, and the Buccaneers. Whoever is speaking now, whoever is supplying their voice to this desire to stay away, they're not speaking for all the draft picks and all the undrafted free agents who will be joining the team in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Right.
Those guys don't even know what team they're going to be assigned to. And I guarantee you this, I talked to people about it last night. I haven't written this yet specifically. You know what's going to happen when it's time to sign the undrafted free agents? The teams are going to say, we want a commitment from you before we offer you this contract that you're showing up to the offseason program. Are you going to be here?
Right.
Are you going to be here? It's hard to make this team. You want a chance to make this team, you got to be here. Are you going to be here? If not, we're going to sign this other guy instead. You're going to have commitments extracted, unofficial, verbal, non-enforceable, but enforceable commitments that these guys are going to show up. Then where are the veteran players if they're home, but the young guys are there?
That might be the only
currying favor with the coaching staff.
Right.
That's how it all collapses. See, the league, I'm told the league thinks this is one of the best developments that has happened in years as it relates to labor relations, because it's going to reinforce the point from 1987 that we talked about not that long ago, when your dad was part of the group that went on strike, and the strike didn't hold together. This is going to be a reminder that work stoppages don't work from the player's perspective.
Yeah, well, yes, I think there's reality to that. Mike, all right, so at a base level here, the NFL, are you happy with their plan, though? Like, do you think they need to have more of a plan for the players to come back and feel safe? Because I think even with all the stuff we're talking about in the NFLPA, I do think there has to be something more done there, right, to make the players feel good. I mean, am I wrong? Am I missing something?
Well, look, I don't know anything about the specifics other than go get the vaccine.
Yeah.
But beyond that, if they just do what they did last year, I just assume they're going to do what they did last year.
I haven't heard
on
that.
the way in.
I haven't heard
test
all
guys.
that. That's
why?
Sure.
Why would you not? I think at a minimum, the NFL's got to test these guys every day, just like they did last year during football season.
Right.
Right. And I do think this deeper back and forth about getting vaccinated is part of it too. They're not going to mandate it, but they're looking for ways to encourage the players to choose to do it on their own. And if they don't do it now, they're going to be put in a box when training camp and the regular season roll around, because it's going to be like the NBA, where if you get it, you have lesser restrictions. If enough guys on your team get it, you have lesser restrictions collectively. So there's going to be peer pressure to get it. And I think for the same reason that we talked last year over and over again how these guys really don't care about COVID. They think they're impervious to it. They think it won't make them sick. I really do think that you're going to stick a needle in my arm? Look at all the other stuff you stick in me. Look at all these drugs I take. You want to give me a vaccine? Give me the vaccine. If it allows me to have a normal life during football season, if it allows me to not have to tiptoe on eggshells around the facility every day I'm at work and I can just focus on my work, then just give me the damn vaccine.
Yeah.
I think that's the core of this. They want guys to choose to get vaccinated, but I still think the pushback, I really don't think it's about collective COVID concern. I think it's about, remember, the guys who run the union are typically veteran players. I think it's about protecting those jobs in a year where the salary cap's $25 million lower than it was supposed to be.
Well, if it is, it's just it's so selfish and so small-minded and ridiculous that those veteran players are steering that ship in this direction. You know, because at once, you know, of course, they were young players and needed those reps and that help and all that stuff. And you're doing, you know, at a base level, you're doing an injustice to the whole football league. There's no doubt about that. I'm so sick of, like, I don't want to hear any more
But
comment.
they think we don't need it.
I know.
They think we don't need
That's
it. If
where
you genuinely convince yourself we don't need it, then you're not doing an injustice to anyone.
It's just a good lazy thought. It's a great lazy thought. Like, yeah, we don't need it. Yeah, okay, right. You don't need it. That's like not reality. You do need it. Football is a different sport. You know, training yourself to be healthy, like we've talked about, we've had these discussions, and the medical science is starting to show, like, you got to be out there on the field, putting yourself in these awkward positions, conditioning yourself for what you're going to have to do. I mean, you know, again, like, this goes for any profession in life, Mike. I mean, right? I mean, when you were a lawyer, were you just like, well, I'm not really going to get into law here or anything. I'm going to take 5 or 6 months off. I'll read a little bit every now and then. I'll read a little bit, and I'll come back a fresher lawyer in September. Oh yeah, will you? Good luck. Okay, that doesn't work in any profession. It's a bullcrap, you know, stance from the players. And if I was a player and a player rep, I'd be pissed off right now and yelling about this and trying to make waves about it.
Think about this, Chris, and this is why I was stunned that the Buccaneers were one of the teams to issue the statement that they're going to boycott the voluntary offseason program. Last year, June or July timeframe, the NFLPA issued a statement, an advisory, a recommendation to the players that were working out on their own, stop it until training camp opens.
Right.
Quit working out together. And that was directed at the Buccaneers.
Yeah,
because
Brady
what was
and the
Tommy?
workouts.
What was Tommy and his band of merry men doing at that high school in Tampa? They were getting together and they were working out. And here's the concern I have, right? Because first of all, I don't think this is going to fly. You told them last year, don't work out on your own, and they did. This year, you're telling them, don't go to the team facility and work out. And do you really think they're not going to? I think they eventually will. But until then, do you really think that Tom Brady and his teammates are going to do nothing?
Yeah, right.
So now here's what you're doing. And think about this young Buccaneers receiver. When you get the phone call from Tom Brady, putting the squeeze on you to go show up at the local high school field instead of going to the team facility. When you step on a rock the wrong way, when you're running full speed, and you blow out your ACL, is Tom paying your salary this year? Because the team sure as hell isn't going to this year. If you deliberately choose not to work out there, to go work out with Tom on the side, because they can do it every year. Teams typically won't do it because they don't want to punish a guy for staying in shape. But for something like this, to prove a point, to score points in that back and forth that is incessant between union and league, if Tom Brady convinces you to go play over here, you better get him to give you something in writing that he's going to pay your salary, because you got a place where you can go and have your salary protected. It's the team facility. So unless the Buccaneers, because I am going to be relentless about this. If we see the same videos we saw last year of Tom Brady and his teammates at some extra separate facility working out together when they could be just at the team facility doing it, it's a stupid, clumsy way that puts guys' salaries for the year at risk if they get injured working out on their own, Chris.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, there's a lot more risk in everything you do that way. I mean, there really is. I mean, you kind of hit it already. But if you were worried about COVID and all those things too, I mean, being at the facility still would be the best, avenue for all of that. Hey, we have 100 water bottles so nobody has to share it. Hey, we have had a service in here to clean things and do all that. Where, you go to just a local field, it's a crap show. I mean, it's just, guys hanging out in the field. Who knows, what's clean, what's dirty, whatever else. So, I think there's a lot of things that don't make sense about this for the players in a big way. I really don't. And I don't think it's good for the players. And just so anybody, is doubting us out there or questioning, Mike and I are very pro-player. I mean, we are pro-player almost all the time. And we are arguing against this because we don't think this is good for the players ultimately. It's not going to help them out.
And I don't know how I want to be careful. But I've made my point clear to the union. And I say, hey, don't get me wrong here. I think that you guys deserve better terms, more money. I'm always on your side. But on this one, I don't get it. I don't see it because I don't see it working. And at the end of the day, it's going to be more power for the league when this thing crumbles, because I think it will eventually crumble for the reasons that you and I have discussed. They're going to have a hell of a time holding this together, because once those young players are on board, they're going to show up, they're going to get their reps, and then you're going to see the possibility that owners, executives, coaches, maybe even they may be more likely to dump that expensive veteran and go with a young player just to prove the point that we need a robust offseason program so we can have our guys as best prepared as they can be for the upcoming football season. So I don't think that this is going to work. And it's better to not do something that you think isn't going to work than just blindly rush into something that has the chance of imploding. I think this thing has a real chance of imploding on the union, Chris.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I don't think it's helpful to the players at the base level. I got nothing more to say about it. So if you're good, I'm good.
I got one more thing to say. To say. I do want to know where Tom Brady stands on this, because it was last year when he was organizing these workouts at the height of the concerns about the pandemic, months before vaccines were available, and he pulled the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Well, where's that mindset now? When you know that the guys are going to work out, why are you afraid to go into the team facility when they've proven that they can keep those facilities cleaner and keep the guys safer than they're going to be anywhere else? I hated the argument last year from the college football coaches that we need to go forward with a football season because the players are safer here than they would be anywhere else. I hated that because it was driven by the desire of the coaches to make their money. But you know what? They got a point.
Yeah.
The NFL players are going to be safer in their team facilities based upon how they ran them last season than they're going to be anywhere else. And if I'm wrong, prove me wrong.
No, Mike, I agree with you totally. I mean, that was one of the things I was saying. Yeah, you go to the practice field, it's just a bunch of guys that are messy and dirty, and who knows what happens. The facility, you got somebody watching over things, and things are done professionally. Yeah, it's definitely a safer place altogether, let alone, like you talked about, it saves the player contractually if an issue does happen. Oh, I broke my ankle. Wait, it was here at the facility. I was working out for the football team. Okay, no problem at all. Oh, you did it at Hillsborough High School down the street? Wait. Well, I don't know. We're not sure if we're happy about that. Why were you practicing on that field? You know it's not safe. It's uneven. It's got divot holes everywhere. I mean, yeah, there's you're opening up a litany of issues if you're a player, playing this game.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.